You should also know I dressed up. I wore a dress tonight because I knew Adam was going to dress up.
I got my Mets tie on for our victory today. Back to
Okay,
back-
we are out on YouTube. And we get record. Okay, we're out on YouTube, we're recording, and we have everybody. Perfect. Okay, call this special workshop meeting to order. We'll stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of the United
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kate, if you would do the roll call, please.
Councilwoman Allen.
Here.
Councilwoman Hagen DePew.
Here.
Councilman Hewitt.
Here.
Councilman Paddock.
Here.
Supervisor Baden.
Here. Okay, our first item on the agenda is to talk about the short-term rental, local law number 2. I've got the latest version up on the screen. Apologies, I was trying to get the Word version that showed the red line, and for some reason I couldn't find the right file. So this is the PDF version. I will make notes of changes that we discuss as we go and then make them rather than making them in real time. So, but this is the last version that we were having up for public hearing. So I think the initial changes that we're looking at here are fairly much just corrections or clarifications. The single family and 2-family dwelling units is again the clarification. We clarified density. If anybody has a topic they want to bring up as we go through it, just sort of stop me. So the prohibitions was the county required us to prohibit multifamily dwelling. We thought that it should be not in commercial or industrial properties, not properties, a parcel that's used for commercial or industrial. And then the vacant properties, in order to be an accessory use, you have to be accessory to something, and that's a residential dwelling unit. So the first thing that we're coming up to that was a discussion item is this exception for alternative dwelling structures. We put this in after the first public hearing because we did hear some requests for this type of unit. Both the county planning board and the local planning board adamantly opposed it. We did hear back a little bit from a couple other, at least one other letter that I remember that was against this idea. I don't believe in the second public hearing anybody brought this up. I think it was only brought up in the first public hearing. So I wanted to have conversation on where we think we should go with this. I could give you my opinion, but let's see who, so Erin is raising her hand. Thank you, Erin. And I apologize, I may not see it because I have the window up. So go ahead, Erin.
I think we should take this out.
I would agree with that as a general purpose. I think it was a nice try to accommodate a small group of the population who this may apply to, but I think the county and the local board make a very compelling argument why it shouldn't be there. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. So hearing none, I'm going to make a note here that section F will be removed.
And does this, according to some of the feedback that we've gotten, mean that it just shouldn't be in this code? It should be thought about elsewhere?
Potentially. It just should not be used as, the county and the local planning board said it should not be used as a short-term rental.
Okay.
we could always explore other ideas of how it could be done. One of the letters that was written to us was from somebody advocating for the tenting style of camping. And the letter we got from our own code enforcement officer was asking about a smaller version of campground, because pretty much we have camping on your own in your backyard, and then we have Rondell Valley campground size campground and nothing in between. We could potentially investigate creating a new land use that would be a smaller scale campground that would accommodate this.
Right. Thank you, Mike.
Yep. And I think, but basically they're saying, don't consider it as a short-term rental, consider it as a campground. So with that gone, section G would also go away because that is in relation to F. In the definitions, we would remove the alternative dwelling structure. And then the definition of camping is the definition that we have in the main code. I included it in here because it does pertain, and now it actually does pertain because it's talking about travel trailers sleeping outside. And so I think it's appropriate to leave that in there. Aaron, you are definitely probably more up on definitions than I am. Are there any changes or anything you think we're forgetting in this?
For this entire section.
Yeah.
So I have a proposal for the next section that would impact our definitions.
Okay. When you say the next section, you're talking about the resident owner?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the resident owner, this came up in a lot of, well, I can tell you guys what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Just after reading our code and this law, I don't know if I'm 100% right, but we say in the beginning that this is shall be strictly considered as an accessory use to residential use, single family and two family dwelling units.
Mm-hmm.
The definition we have for residential use is that it's a permanent dwelling. And I was thinking about it along the lines of home. You know, we have our home business section of our code where, you know, you have to live there and run your business there.
Mm-hmm.
And after listening to the comments, we got a lot of feedback from people who are very clearly non-owner occupied, like they don't ever live in the houses that they're renting out as short-term rentals. And, you know, they talked a lot about how these are, you know, very significant businesses. And I just was thinking, when I read the definition of an inn in our code, which is a commercial building similar in size to a residential dwelling operating as a small hotel,
Mm-hmm.
I was going to suggest that instead of having this cap on non-owner occupied short-term rentals, that we say that non-owner occupied short-term rentals are inns, and then those are allowed in all of our districts currently except industrial and natural resource.
Which is okay because we're not allowing short-term rentals in those.
And they get, in some of the districts, it's a special use permit, and in others it's site plan. So they would go before the planning board, but I think that might help, because what we're trying to do is say that people who live in their home and are using this as an accessory use to them living there
Mm-hmm.
is one thing. And we were trying to say that people who are just buying a house for the purposes of running it as a rental is a different type of use. So that was my I've been thinking about this since our last public.
I actually like that idea. I had a little bit of an alternative idea, but I want to ask Mary Lou, I have a question for you. If we were to enact what Aaron is talking about, is saying if it's non-owner occupied, it must be classified as an inn. How would we deal with pre-existing non-conforming? So people that are currently operating right now don't need a permit to do this because we haven't required a permit. There's some question of whether it is legal or not legal. And I don't even really want to get into that discussion right now unless you think it's germane to the discussion. But does that become a non-conforming use? And people that are currently doing it would be grandfathered in, or how would that work? You're probably
Sorry.
muted.
Yeah, I am. I was hitting my space bar and that wasn't working this time to unmute it. It kind of depends what you want to do. Because right now they're just residences that happen to be used for short periods of time. You're not taking away their residential use.
Correct.
So I think that you could put in a provision that either way, either that if it existed before the date of the law, it's grandfathered in and can act as a short-term rental, or you can say that it's not. That
Yeah.
it was considered a residence, and if you're going to be renting it out short-term and it's not owner occupied, then you're going to go to the in definition.
Right. And as you said that, it just popped in my head though. An inn is a commercial use. So
Mhm.
if we're still going to say these are, I think we need a little bit of a clarification, Aaron. And I don't know how we're back to the circular argument of if somebody uses it residentially themselves for 4 or 5 months of the year and rents it out for 7 or 8 months of the year, are we going to make them make their house into a commercial use, or are we going to say, so where do we draw the line between who's a resident and who's not a resident?
That's why I was saying that. To me, that's the hardest thing about
Yeah.
this, is I do feel that people who are, living in the home for a significant portion of the year, that it's, a secondary use to their
Right.
residential use. But again, yeah, like where do we get into that difficult drawing the line.
Does anybody have any suggestions or ideas? And this is really the struggle of what we would use as either the baseline or the proof that they live there. I mean, if it's got to be more than just a utility bill or something, because if they own a piece of property, whether they live there or not, they're going to get a utility bill. So
I have
Well,
a suggestion
yeah,
where they vote.
Yeah, I was gonna say where they vote, where's their driver's license?
yeah, I don't know that we can use where they vote because we can't mandate that somebody register to vote.
That's true, but it's evidence that it's your residence
Yeah.
or
yeah.
your domicile.
It could be one form of evidence. Absolutely. Could be one
There's-
form of evidence.
There's two different things. There's domicile and there's residence. You can have 100 residences that you live in, half a day a year, I guess, if it's 100, or half a week. But you can only have one domicile. A domicile is the place that is intended to be your home. So, you have a lot of snowbirds. They live up here, they vote up here, their driver's license is up here, but they are in Florida for the winter months. So they have two residences, but one domicile or one home. So maybe you want to say that if it's their domicile, and then there are, court cases out there that say you use things like where you're registered to vote, where's your driver's license, things like that.
But are we excluding the people who are, 3 days a week in one place and 4 days a week in another, just because they have their driver's license where they are 4 days a week? If they're here 120 days a year, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, but does that make it doesn't make it any less a residential structure if they're not there if they're there 4 months out of the year and not there 8 months out of the year, to me, if you stay somewhere a couple weeks a year, that's different. But I think if you're staying somewhere a substantial portion of the year, I don't know. Aaron, your hand's up. I'm struggling here, so help me.
There's two things. I think there is a legal definition of residence if that's where we want to go. The other way to do it is, the way I'm interpreting this is the impact of the use. So we're saying in this law, we're defining this use, this new short-term transient rental, as something that's an accessory to a residential use. So to me, that means it's accessory to someone using it as their domicile. And so the reason why we're drawing that distinction is because we see how just like a home occupation, it supports that person living in our community and all the reasons. So I think that we could say that it, based on what the applicant is saying, they intend to, like, if you're gonna rent out your home for X amount of days per year, then, we consider it, you would be living there the other. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is we could say it's limited to residents, and whatever the legal definition of resident is what we would use, and then everything else would be an in.
Yeah. No, I hear that. The thing about with land use, like a residential use, an apartment building that you never live in, that you rent, or if you have even a single family home that you own and you rent, the use is still residential. It doesn't become commercial. It's just a rental of a residential use. Now, I know we're saying they must be single family and two family, and like a renter couldn't, without the owner's approval, couldn't turn a short-term rental, and the owner would have to. But if we're limiting it to that extent, I'm just concerned we're closing the door too much. But I'm open to other ideas or opinions. I'm really struggling with this myself. Chris, your hand's up. Sorry, thank you.
B had hers up before me.
Okay, I apologize. With the window closed down, I only see one camera at a time, so.
Go ahead, B.
Go ahead, B.
Okay, what promoted, I guess, going back several steps here, what promoted the resident owner occupied discussion versus the non-owner occupied? The letters we received?
No, the county planning boards required mod from the very first time.
Right.
They said you should cap your non-owner occupied at
Right.
whatever the current is,
Right.
and not let any more higher than that number exist. So that's what started the initial discussion.
Okay, I understand that, but I thought we had agreed on the 2%. So that's where I'm saying, why are we going again with this? Why are we trying to establish something different?
Because there were a lot of comments about the concerns of the 2%. And so I'm opening the door for discussion, because we haven't talked about it since we had that public hearing. So.
All right, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, if we're ever going to get this passed at any level, we could pick this document apart till Vesuvius blows up again. Anyway, where I'm going with this is, basically, because there was no law on the books, none of this should have been allowed anyway. Am I correct? And so what we're trying to do is promote something to help. And yet at every stage of the game, we get further input, which we try to consider. Do you think we've got our arms full enough now? Can we just put down a basic law so that we are not breaking our own town law, since none of this is in town law, and it's being, town law is being broken at this time? I mean, is there?
Well, I don't think that's the law being broken, because we don't have a law that says you can't rent out your own property. So that's just my personal opinion. People can agree or disagree whether it's violating the law right now. I don't know if it is or isn't. Yeah.
I can answer that question.
Okay.
Court cases say if you don't have a law, you can have short-term rentals because it's just a residential use still.
So the court is saying they're not breaking the law currently. So
Right.
we're trying to put the law in to establish health and safety reasons and to manage and to ensure that it's being done safely, which is the purpose of this law. It's not meant to be and I guess that's why I'm being really cautious and careful. It's not really meant to be an impediment, but we also want to take into account, the number of rental housing units in the town could potentially be eaten up by this. And certainly a person who is going to rent out a single family house can make more money than somebody who's just going to live there and can afford to pay more for it. And we're pricing our housing market out of the realm of possibility. So Chris, you had your hand up. Let me go to you next.
Thank you. I was going to say what B was just saying about how it's a big shift to what we've already discussed to call it an inn as a use. And so if we do go in that direction, I agree with what Mary Lou was saying. There's already precedence on the definition of domicile. And so if we go in that direction, this should have information about what we consider a full-time residence or owner occupied or what a domicile is. But because we're still considering what we've made progress with, I think I was just wondering, Aaron, have you heard of this in use as in another example in another town? And I think that was all of my points. I might have forgotten something, but go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I do know that Kingston is trying to pass something similar. I only found that out because I was watching the Ulster County Planning Board meeting last night. And then I actually, when I was doing a lot of after our public hearing, I did a lot of thinking and reading, and I sort of read lots of things, and I had read that that is something that is a good thing to do when something's just being used primarily only as a rental and no one's living there at all. So I had seen that, but I can't give you any examples. And I can go anywhere the board was going. This is, has been gnawing at me. And so I wanted to share with you guys. I do think though, one of the reasons why I thought of this is because even if we do change, if we keep it the same, if we keep what we're doing the same, I do think we need to clarify what we mean by
Absolutely
the resident owners and the non-resident owners, because that is not clear. And I think I heard in the public comment in our public hearing that is one, an area of concern for a lot of people, and two, it's just not really clear. So where are we going to draw that line in this law? It's still something we have to consider, is all I'm saying, is where are we going to draw that line, and using what criteria. So
yeah, I would absolutely agree that we need to clarify owner occupied versus non-owner occupied as more defined as to what that means. What Aaron's talking about with Kingston is a unique situation in that their zoning code doesn't cover everything. They have a lot of sections of code that are permit based, and so health and safety are not parts of their zoning code. Kingston is doing a kind of unique thing, and I'll be curious to see how it plays out, is they are classifying all short-term rentals as hotels and are changing their definition of hotel to include short-term rentals. However, they're not allowing it in any residential districts. So I have a feeling that they're going to be caught up in some court over if they go that route. And the first I've heard about it, but last night Aaron and I were at the county planning board meeting and it was talked about because it was a referral to the county. I think it's a very specific solution for Kingston because of their uniqueness of the way their code is. Mary Lou can probably speak to some of that if she wants to. She may not want to because she used to be the Kingston's attorney, but so B, you had your hand up. You're muted, sorry.
Sorry about that. Can't talk if you've got something over your mouth. Mary Lou, what by law is the definition of resident owner occupied versus non-owner occupied? I mean,
I don't know if there is a definition. I guess it would be a definition if what we would put in our code. I don't think there's a state definition for that. But, you know, I can't say I've ever looked into it. I can look to see, but I really do not think there is.
Then why is this so tough, I guess, is my question. Resident owner occupied to me means the person lives here in this town and is near or close to what they are going to use as a short-term rental. The non-owner occupied short-term rental means the people are renting it out for 3 months of the year, but their quote unquote domicile is Pennsylvania, New York City. I don't care where you put them, but they're not here all the time. They're only using it to come up when they're not renting it, then they come and use it themselves.
You know what? When I heard resident owner, I didn't think resident meant resident of the town of Rochester. I heard that as resident of that particular home.
That's another way, I guess. Non-owner occupied means that the owner of the property does not
live there.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That's how so right there we have a difference in interpretation.
There's a couple of different ways of
Yeah.
thinking, and that's
And the thing about voting and driver's license is anybody can write anything down on their application, and as long as you have something that, you know, shows that it is accurate and that you're not putting down a false address, there's no check of whether you're there for 2 months or 10 months. So, you know, you could have a place here that you stay for 3 or 4 weeks a year, and if you want to register your driver's license at that location, you can. So I'm not sure that domicile really, that's my sort of my issue is it's not defined enough as to what we're trying to, the intent, I think, is that we want these to be places where people live most of the year, but how do we prove that, and how does Jerry confirm that?
Come up with a number and they have to affirm it. And if they swear to it in front of a notary and it's false, then they've perjured themselves. You know, how do you prove it? I guess their neighbors squeal on them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
B, you're muted again. Sorry.
secondary domicile is what I was thinking. Secondary domicile.
you can only have one domicile.
Oh, okay.
You can have
Be a
many
secondary
residences.
residence.
You can only have one domicile.
Secondary residence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, let me throw out an idea that popped in my head, and I still run into the same owner occupied, non-owner occupied problem, but in terms of the number, I circulated to all of you a couple weeks ago a new list from the county. That list is confidential as terms of the information that's on that list. However, it was much more accurate and much more in line with the very first one we got a year and a half ago. And the Department of Finance admitted that the second list that they sent us with the 39 units on it was probably not accurate. So I don't remember off the top of my head. It was approximately 100. We'll say it was in that ballpark. It was, I think, 104, 102, something like that. An idea that popped into my head is these units by county law are supposed to be registered with the county. So whatever date we approve the law, we could ask the county for their list of who is registered with the county as a short-term rental as of that date, and say those particular units are grandfathered in, but we still run into a problem with anything beyond that. Do we exclude all non-owner occupied and say it must be owner occupied, and the people that are already in and running? Essentially, we've said we're kind of achieving what the county said, which was to determine the number of non-owner occupied and make that be your cap. In my idea, we'd be determining the number of existing short-term rentals that have gone through the process of registering with the county, which means they have somewhat legitimized themselves by following the tax rule that the county has. We reward those people and say, if, as long as you pass your inspection and you meet our other criteria, you can get your permit. But then we have to figure out what we do beyond that. So, B?
Mike, the thing I was thinking, the fact is we are following the county law, and therefore that's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
And if other people want to continue, then they're going to have to go to Jerry with a new permit, and we'll have to see what we get and maybe change the percentage or see if it's harming the town.
Well, this way we wouldn't go with a percentage. We would say anybody, you know, the date of enactment of this law, anybody who is registered with the county, and we have the list of not only the numbers, we have the list of the each individual one. Now, the one thing I need to clarify with the county, that list, I want to make sure that's the registered list, or is it they have hired a company who is doing data mining of the internet and establishing a list of possible short-term rentals. And then the county is writing to those people and telling them, we've identified you as a short-term rental, you have to register. Now, in that county list, there was a new column that was not in the first time. And it was interesting because many of them showed when the last listing was placed. And some of them were more than 180 days before the date we got the list. So a number of them may not even be operating as short-term rentals right now. So, but it would be a good baseline because, and it's essentially what the county planning board told us we were supposed to do, is use the existing number as a grandfathered in. The question then that is in my mind is, moving forward, how do we deal with it? So Aaron, your hand's up.
I just want to see if I understand what you're proposing, Mike. So is what you're proposing is we use the number of county registered short-term transient rentals and say that's how many permits we have? Or are we saying specifically you get a permit if you're registered with the county and this is the approval, this is like the inspection process for that?
We would still, so what I'm saying is, if you have registered with the county and the county confirms that you are registered with the county and on their list, you will be allowed to get a permit as long as you're not a multifamily, or there's some other, like, I can probably guarantee you there are probably some sites on the county's list that are operating as campgrounds. Our local law is not allowing campgrounds. So you wouldn't be grandfathered in because you would be violating our law. But if you meet our criteria, all the ones that have properly registered, we will grandfather them in. They are assured to continue a permit as long as they pass their inspection and everything else. But and then so that would be the grandfathered in ones. And then above that, we either could use the county number as a whole, which is about 100, which is a little bit more than what we were proposing, but we were only proposing non-owner occupied at 75. And this would be total at 100.
So we could potentially say, I'm just trying to understand, make sure I understand what you're
saying. I haven't thought through the beyond, any new ones beyond, and that's where I struggle, is the owner occupied versus the non-owner occupied again.
Got it. So, okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying bare minimum, maybe we could say, if you followed the county guidelines, you registered, as long as you're not doing something that we're saying is prohibited,
Right.
there's a permit for you.
Right. And the reason that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then if we decided to kind of keep the law as it is, but still needing to clarify, sorry about the dog barking, resident owner versus non-resident owner, even if we had a cap on that, the people who were in that first group, that wouldn't apply to them at all. It would be an additional.
And I think that addresses the people that we heard from who said, many people who spoke or sent us letters said, I'm registered with the county. I'm registered with the county. Who knows if they are or aren't, ultimately we could find that out. But what I'm saying is, the people that have been doing this already prior to us enacting this local law, let's sort of hold them harmless. They still have to meet the criteria they still have to get the permit. They still have to apply for the permit, meet the criteria for the permit, but they will be guaranteed that if they achieve everything to get a permit, they will get a permit. And that will answer the people that we heard from who were concerned about our number cap. And then moving forward, we can either set a cap on the total number. We could set a cap on, if we set a cap on the total number moving forward beyond that. So let's just say, for example, we grandfather in 50 units, and I'm just picking a number.
And Mike, you're just talking about non-owner occupied, right?
Well, and that's where I was just headed. If we pick 50, if we pick whatever the number is of county registered at the enaction, they get grandfathered in. And we say, we're going to allow 75 more beyond that. We may be able to avoid the owner occupied, non-owner occupied thing and just say, we're going to allow 75 more. That's 125 total. And again, these are just made up numbers. I don't know if the number will be 50 in the grandfathered in. I don't know if it'll be 75, but then we pick another number above that, and we can always adjust that number as we move forward if we find we need to. It's just an idea. And then we don't have to deal with the owner occupied versus non-owner occupied conundrum. I would love to, though, add in a stipulation that it must be owned by an individual or multiple individuals, and not allow it to be owned by an LLC or a corporation. That will eliminate some of the buying up of houses just for profit. And I fully understand that somebody might, as an individual, might want to form an LLC for tax reasons. But when I looked at our list, there was about 7% roughly that is LLCs. And so it was about 7 out of 100. So I don't think that that's a significant drawback. So
I would suggest, Mike, that if we know any of those 7, sorry, B, I know you have your hand up. Okay. If we know any of those 7, ask them why they do it, because maybe they just don't want to get sued and they live there and they just are decreasing their liability.
Yeah, there is that. B?
Mike, the one thing I want to impress when we're speaking permits, we are speaking now of town permits. They have to have the county permit.
Correct, town permits.
I want to be clear on that.
No, but thank you. Yeah, no, I'm talking town permits. So the county registration is a requirement, and anybody, in order to get the town permit, one of the criteria is you must register with the county and show us proof that you've registered with the county. So, and the county requires that in order to provide us the list. I'm just throwing it out as a potential option. I don't know if it's a good way to go, bad way to go. I'm not sure. So, Adam, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, no, I'm sitting here trying to get my head wrapped around this. This is a great discussion, but so here's a solution. If you said, listen, you have by X date to get registered with the county to get grandfathered in, and then we said we'll go a certain percentage above that, not to exceed 2% of the entire housing inventory, that comes up with your number. So something, it might sound like 100%, 100 homes with grandfathered in, if that's the number, and then 20% above it, so another 20 houses. But if it was 110 houses and 20% put it up to 100 and what's that, 122, but that was more than 2%, we wouldn't go above the 2%. So there's a little flexibility there. I hate to start thinking about it like an algorithm, but this does solve a problem. It's grandfathered houses plus a percentage, not to exceed a percentage. And, again, I'm like with B with that 2%. That seems like a big chunk of our town being used for,
2% is roughly 75. It's like 74 point something. So 75.
is it that low? Oh, it's 7,500 residences with 3,500 houses.
Not 7,500 residences. It's about 3,800 houses, residential houses.
Well, we'd have to increase that number to 3% then. So grandfathered in with a certain amount over, not to exceed 3%, because we're already up there then.
Yeah, because the county number is about 100. Again, I don't know if that's the number registered or the number that they have identified. We can clarify that. I think we shouldn't reward somebody who's been identified who has not registered with the county. I think you're only grandfathered in if you're registered with the county by the date this law is enacted.
Yeah. It makes sense, but like I said, if we use the cap of the percentage like we talked about originally, and obviously we're already over 2% or most likely over 2%, but grandfather it in, we don't want to say that you can only have the houses that are grandfathered in, and nobody else who ever owns a house in the town of Rochester can ever get another one unless somebody stops having a short-term rental. So there should be a percentage over that. Just off the top of my head, the number 20% more sounds like a lot when I say it, but what is that on 100 houses? Another 20? So maybe it's 10%, but not to exceed 3% of the total inventory.
But let me throw out this idea, Adam. What if we say the grandfathered number is whatever the grandfathered number is, and then the additional, we allow 2% of the additional? That's an additional 75. So that could potentially be 175 units.
That sounds like too much.
And then we don't,
to me.
Then maybe we go to 1%, which is an additional 30.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, because now you're talking a total inventory of 4%. So again, it seems like that 3% number is, but again, we have to find out how many we actually have. We think we have a good number, but what if it comes back that there's 150 people that register under the deadline?
Well, I don't think it's going to be. Oh yeah, I understand, because a lot of people may go out and register quickly, and then you're right. So, Aaron B, I don't know which one of you had your hand up first. So, you guys.
I think I had it up. I'll just say so I have two things to say. One is I like the idea of the grandfathering in based on people registering with the county. I also like Adam's idea of setting a general cap, because if it's, I know that this is not popular with people who are running short-term rentals, but 2% is a lot of housing stock. So if we're making it higher than that, I think that's fine, because then we're sort of allowing for the people who are running them out of their domiciles in that number. So I think we can talk about that a little bit more, but I support those ideas. I also like the idea, Mike, that you said that we kind of take the owner occupied versus non-owner occupied out of this law for now. And the reason why I like that is because I actually really like my in interpretation. And so I think if we did see that we were running into an issue at some future date, that could be a direction, not now, but at some future date, that could be a direction that we go in for future.
Bear in mind, and I just need to bring this up, if we do that, we will have to have a supermajority, because the county is pretty adamant that we have a cap on non-owner occupied. So if we take them out of the mix, we most likely would need to do a supermajority vote, which is possible. And we can explain the conundrum of how we're struggling with defining owner occupied versus non-owner occupied. And the county's answer was, where do they vote? And to me, I don't accept that answer, because it's too arbitrary.
Okay.
Yeah. So B, you had something to say.
Yeah, we have this established pretty well. If we take out the non-owner occupied dwelling units, it says shall be established by the town board annually on or before September 30th of each calendar year based on the town of Rochester assessor final tax roll for that year. We have that down there. And then we have the cap shall be established with the following formula rounded to the nearest number, the number of residential dwelling units on the final tax roll times 2%. So we kind of have that if we're going to just remove and take
Non-owner occupied.
distinction. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have to take, but can we use that whole thing for a non-distinguished law? I mean, no resident owner occupied or non-owner occupied, whatever. Can we use that formula in what we're proposing after the grandfathering?
Well, and that's a lot of properties, because if we're going to grandfather in, we're going to grandfather in about roughly 2 to 2.5%, and then if we're going to go another 2% above that, now we're saying 4% to almost 5% of our residences can be short-term rentals.
So we
I
can
think
still lower it. We can
now if most of them are owner occupied, it's a non-issue, because it's not stealing housing units from availability of purchasers if it's owner occupied. So it's still the non-owner occupied, owner occupied problem still rears its head to some degree, unless we set it at a moderate median number. For now, we can always amend the percentage at any time by amending the local law. I know there's a process to do that, but
Or you could say capped at whatever, capped at a percentage to be determined from time to time by the town board by resolution.
okay.
Yeah, I was thinking something similar. Also, I was thinking, is there any reason why we can't kind of do this in 2 stages, where we first focus on the people that are registered in the county, see what that is, and then, like, again, like what Mary Lou was saying, then we say, okay, we're going to open up X number of permits.
Well, to me, the number that are currently registered, that's the grandfathered in. I think I haven't heard any sort of arguments against the grandfathering in. So I think that number is, the percentage is not, the grandfathering in does not, in my mind, doesn't, that number, whatever that number ends up being, doesn't factor into the percentage. I think the increase above the grandfathering in becomes the percentage. So I agree with Adam. If we're going to grandfather in a certain number, 2% is too high. But now I don't know if 1% is too low. And maybe we just, instead of doing percentage, we just assign a number to it above grandfathered in. I mean, some town boards have just set a total number cap on these units of, you can't have more than X number in the town at any one time. It removes the owner occupied versus non-owner occupied discussion. It doesn't really solve the problem, though, of somebody who's going to go potentially buy up 4 or 5 houses and just turn them into short-term rentals. Adam, you got your hand up. So.
I mean, one of the things we have to consider, though, is and again, it might be unpopular, but if we're taking away 7 LLCs and other non-conforming, if the number is 100, we might drop down by 20, that don't fit the definition now. So that will decrease that from the, from 2.5%, probably closer to 2%. But, I like what Aaron's saying about, I don't think we have to decide this number right now, or what Mary Lou said, that, we don't have, we can make this number variable based on information that comes forward, that, we could have something that we said, hey, we think this is going to be pretty good, but let's check back on, what'd you say, be September 30th, and say, okay, now we have more clear information. Now we're going to set the 2021, or 2022 amount, or the, the amount going forward for this foreseeable future.
It's the date we set, Adam. I'm just reading from what we had set prior.
Well, if we're going to do that, then I would suggest we don't even deal with a percentage. We just set we set a number, and that every September 30th, we reset that new number. And the sort of downside of that is, any town board in the future can just make it be whatever number they want to be, but then again, any town board could amend the local law too, so it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
So I think I'm hearing that we allow existing to be grandfathered in as long as they meet the permit criteria and the local law criteria. And so that's one number. And then what we have to do is establish the number of new ones allowed in the next year period, or in this case, it would be from the adoption of the law until December 31st. But we could say we don't have to pin down the number now. We can say a number to be determined by the town board, and we can have that discussion later. And I can, between now and we have that discussion, I can get that information from the county, a little more defined of registered versus the list they provided us, and go from there. Does that sound like whatever we do, we have to go back to public hearing? Mary Lou, is this a significant enough change that you think we would have to go back to the county planning board and local planning board? Would you recommend that? In a way, we're following their.
I was going to say, we're kind of going based on their suggestions.
Yeah, except the non-conforming, non-owner occupied, owner occupied, their cap was non-owner occupied.
You know what I'm going to say? Ask Dennis
Okay,
if he feels this is significant,
yeah,
or Rob.
yeah,
Ask the county if they feel that
okay,
that's a significant change, and if they do, we'll send it to them again.
okay. Well, I'm gonna ask that, you and I in the next, between now and the workshop meeting, we'll draft these changes in, we'll get it to the board at the workshop meeting to vote, to move it forward to public hearing. We'll have the public hearing, and then by then I can have an answer from Dennis of whether it should be re-referred or not. My guess is he may say no. It's not a significant change. It's a conceptual change, and the removal of the alternative dwellings was their recommendation, so that doesn't need to be referred back. Okay. Is the board okay that Mary Lou and I work on that, and I'll move forward to the rest of the code? I think we at least have a game plan. We still don't necessarily have numbers, but we have a game plan.
But you guys will come up, are you saying that you and Mary Lou will come up with a proposal for the number?
No, actually what I'm saying is we're gonna write the local law. So if we're gonna say that the town board is gonna establish it from time to time, then no, I'm not gonna come up with the number.
Okay.
The law is gonna say that, and we still will have to come up with the number before we adopt the local law, at least for the rest of this year. But that can be by resolution, not by but we should have an idea of what it's gonna be before we have the public hearing, because clearly the public is gonna wanna know. So.
Right, and how is the grandfathering in going to interact with that number every single year too? We should clarify that.
Well, I think the grandfathering in is a one-shot deal. The grandfathering in is at the existence of this law when it's adopted. So if you are registered with the county, you are assured that you will continue getting a permit as long as you continue to operate. The number doesn't matter. It's the property will get the permit. But if you stop, because we say they're non-transferable, if you stop operating and somebody new comes into your property, they aren't grandfathered in anymore. Is that legal, Mary Lou? Because this is not a land use thing as much as a permit system. You might be muted.
Yeah. No, I think that's okay. It was
Okay.
weird. I guess spacebar is not working for unmuting anymore, because
Oh.
this time it sent everything away. So I'll just unmute
Okay.
with the mute button.
So moving through, we did have a number of questions about the proof of the septic, the new permit applications. I kind of disagree that it's that hard to get. Somebody commented that, you know, they had to schedule their septic guy 2 months in advance to come, but there are other alternatives. You can pay a licensed engineer to come view your septic system and tell us whether it's operating. All we're asking is that it's a certification that it's operating properly, that we're not giving, because Jerry is not qualified, or Will is not qualified to review septic to say whether it's operating properly or not. I mean, if it's not operating properly, probably the neighbors are going to know pretty well too. So, but I don't feel the need to change anything there unless somebody, we did take out that you have to prove that it's pumped every 3 years. We took that out.
And it's only for the new applications too. It's not for a renewal application. So the documentation.
Yeah, I guess it is. It's new. Yeah. So when you're renewing, you don't need to. But remember, your permit is good for 2 years. So when you renew for the year 3, is that treated as a new application or is that a renewal? I'm asking.
Renewal, because they're especially for the folks that are going to be grandfathered in. It won't be new. It's a renewal.
Okay.
Mike, if they're using the excuse that it takes them 3 months to get a hold of their septic guy, they got a real problem, because
Yeah. Well, that one letter did say that it took them 2 months to get. So
I feel very bad for that, whoever that person was, because if they've got an issue, they've got a real issue.
Yeah. Okay. I think the rest was fairly straightforward. The one question people were asking about is, we said they would have 90 days to apply, and I want to clarify, that's not 90 days to be approved. That's 90 days to file a permit application from the date of adoption of this. So all it means is you have to get everything ready and file your application. It doesn't mean that your inspection is scheduled, completed. That will take whatever time it takes for the code enforcement office to work through that. But it does mean you have to have filed an application and had your application accepted, meaning you have an application that is now in the queue waiting for inspection. So in my mind, 90 days is okay. Does anybody feel different about that? I forgot what section that was in. Clearly I've passed it. Oh, we should, S5, I'm gonna have to take out that last sentence too, about special use. Some people were talking about the local agent within an hour away, and they said everything can be done, by phone, and I still think if there's a problem, there should be somebody able to be called to come show up on the site. So I am personally against changing that, and I see B nodding her head. And does anybody else have a dissenting view on that?
I mean, if you have a fire, I would think you would want to get here as quickly as you could, God forbid.
Right.
Or anything else that maybe, or if one of your people got hurt or something.
And we're just saying you have to have a local agent that you have designated. It could be a family member, it could be a relative. It's just somebody to be your representative in the case of an emergency. It doesn't have to be somebody you're paying money to, that's your choice if you want to have a local manager, but it's somebody who's willing to, or is taking on that responsibility.
Well, it makes me think, I'm in favor of that, and it'll give comfort to any guests in our town. And it makes me think it can even be a plumber who's available, and that resident pays that plumber to be available.
Yep. I'm just looking back, trying to find where I put that section of 90 days to apply. I just want to make sure I was not remembering it incorrectly.
There it is.
Yep. So who have existing short-term rental units shall have 90 days from the effective. So we also we will use that section to elaborate on the ones that will be grandfathered in.
Right.
So, okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? If not, I think it's a little bit of tweaking. I'll work on it. I'll work with Mary Lou in getting that together. I'll bring it back to us for our workshop meeting. Get your okay. We'll decide if it needs to be re-referred or not, and we'll get it scheduled for the next public hearing. Sound like a plan? Okay, thank you. So moving on to comprehensive plan addendum. We will I'm going to sort of turn this over to Erin because the public hearing was her resolution, and I'm going to just let her sort of take the lead if that's okay.
Okay, sure. I mean,
Sorry, I'm kind of throwing you under the bus, but
no, it's okay.
I don't really know exactly, we need to talk about it, what we're going to do next, but I don't really know where we go.
I agree with that sentiment, and I feel like, well, we got a lot of public comment, which I thought was really helpful, and I feel like there's a few directions we could go. And one thing that I would just like to say that I heard a little bit, and I don't know how to address this, but it's something that I feel is important to be addressed, just in the future boards, future goals, even this board, is that I heard that there was a portion of residents in the town that didn't feel like the natural heritage plan process was inclusive of them and their voice and their needs. And that was something that I heard underneath some of those comments. And so I just wanted to recognize that I heard that. And I think for those types of projects, we want people to really see themselves in them. We want the town to identify with that. So I thought of just a couple things, and I really want to hear what the rest of the board members think. I think one thing that was coming up a lot was the mapping of the critical environmental area. That seemed to be something that was, I think we could maybe remove that from the amendment. And that could be one thing we did. And the other thing I thought of is we could draft a statement or some sort of text that would be ahead of the appendices that would provide some context that I think would help. I didn't do that though. It was just an idea. And then the other thing I thought of is we could just say, that's it. We're not going to consider this anymore. We have work to do in terms of updating our comprehensive plan generally. These are documents that exist in the town, and we can take the advice of them if we want. I think those are the ideas that I had. But overall, I'd say with all the technology we have now and the ways we have to connect with each other and communicate, I'd like to see, us move more towards a direction where people can really see how they're shaping, the comprehensive plan, that it feels like something that I know there was a whole process, and I know there were a lot of community meetings and stuff, and, but I did hear that a little bit, people not really seeing themselves in some of that. So
Okay, well, I'm trying to get used to it myself, so I raised my own hand. But so my reaction to that, Aaron, is I would agree with an awful lot of what you said. So I want to sort of reiterate, the critical environmental area is a region right now. It's not mapped.
Right.
It's-
Oh, right. You're right. You're right. I
Yeah,
missed-
it's just what is in there in that document is identifying an area that before we adopted a critical environmental area would need to be mapped. And there would be a process that would go through. And if it were to be adopted, it would have its own separate public hearing process on that adoption. So that being said, what's in there is goes back to that these documents are a set of goals, a set of ideas. All that being said, I appreciate hearing you say that doing nothing is one option, because I'm leaning that way myself. I think the documents exist. We got grant money to do these documents. It was done through a consultant, and the original, the first step of it, which was the natural resources inventory, was a committee of people, and it was the ECC's project. The ECC secured this grant. The second step of the Natural Heritage Plan was the next phase of that grant, and that was done with secondary grant money, and that one was less a public input and more data driven, where the consultant was crunching numbers and creating a document that is essentially almost like a textbook. It's not really a policy. It's a policy document to some degree. And that's why I recommended that we took out those very specific local resolutions that were in there, because my feeling was those were written by a consultant, not by an attorney. And we have an attorney on, that we pay to be our attorney, and that we shouldn't be taking a planning consultant's words as what the local law or the resolution should be. So that's why I advocated from the beginning to take those out. So all that being said is, I think right now, moving on and doing nothing is not a bad idea. The information still exists. We can, if we do decide to move forward in future with our comprehensive plan, the data that has been accumulated from all that Google Earth and all that GIS mapping, it will be very helpful and in creating a new comprehensive plan. So B, you have your hand up.
So was saying we're going to do nothing. I am guessing then we would not go forward with the heritage plan. Is that what I'm hearing? That I am correct?
I'm saying we wouldn't go forward with any of them. So it's all three that are proposed to be. It's not just the heritage plan.
I just wanted clarification.
Yep. Now a question to put out there. The historical one, there was not, to my knowledge, there were no concerns or comments about that. We could reword it, and the historical plan is, admittedly, it is now 13 years out of date. But at the time, again, it was a very concise collection of existing data of what existed. It by no means puts anything on a national register in any way or shape or form, unless people want to be. It's just an identification of the historic connection to the town of Rochester. So we could move forward with adding the historic one, which I don't, like I said, I don't believe there were any comments made against that. How does the board feel on that? We remove the two environmental documents, but do move forward with adding the historic one to the comp plan.
I think B wasn't finished talking.
I'm sorry, B.
Thanks, Chris. What I'm asking you is the two that are plans are not the historic plan. The historic plan was not done by this group, this consultant group. Is that correct?
No, that was done. The HPC had that one commissioned.
That's what I thought.
In 2008, and it's a survey.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
correct.
survey. It's not
Right.
it's a historical telling of the history of the town, and using, styles and periods, and using the specific properties as examples of.
Right. I'm just curious why these got all grouped together. I think we should separate out the two plans and the historical plan, just like you started to do. I think that's an
Yeah.
excellent.
Well, they only got looped together because the historical plan has been kind of hanging out there since 2008. It was never really adopted until we adopted it in 2018, because I realized it never was adopted. Now, we adopted it as a standalone document in 2018.
And I
not as
think
part of the
it should
comp plan.
stay that way. I think it needs
Yeah.
to stand by itself and leave the other two to themselves.
So when you say that, though, you would say it would be okay to add the historical to the comp plan? When you say stand by
If you're
itself.
saying that we have already done this in 2018, what's the purpose of doing it again?
We adopted, actually, I shouldn't use the word adopted. We accepted the document. So when the document was created, the HPC was utilizing it for information. They were, it became kind of like an encyclopedia for them. But the town board never officially said, for lack of a better way, said, this is now a town document. So in 2018, we did that. By making it part of our comp plan, what it says is that when you're adopting town code, these things have to be considered. Now, that doesn't mean we have a historic overlay. That doesn't mean any of that. It just means it gives it a little more, I don't even want to use the word weight, but it becomes a more widely used resource.
I think because
We don't have to put it in the comp plan. It's still
that's what I
there.
was going to say.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I think that a lot of this data is old as it's been presented.
Mhm.
I think maybe all of it at some point in time. I think at this time we should leave it out, and all of it, the entities that we're considering, and hopefully get some new data.
Which would mean sort of committing to future, moving forward with comp plan update, which we are in year 15 of our 2006 comp plan.
Right.
We are at that stage, and that is a
And your
do a comp plan
commission-
is
your commission
not a
is
small
still
undertaking, and could be a couple year process, and involves finding funding. The good news is there's a lot of funding out there for comp plans, because the DEC and many other organizations realize the importance of them. So,
But your commission is still active. I know.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so they are going to have input, even if we don't include it now, they'll be coming up with active information.
And it doesn't diminish the information in that document. It just means it's not part of the comp plan. And I've kind of always said that. The only reason is we kind of have these three documents, as you put it, are kind of standing alone by themselves. They were still officially in draft format until we accepted them in 18. By accepting them, we just said, yes, this is a town document, and we made sure Kate has a copy for her records, and it's on the website. And that's really all we did by accepting it. And it's available I don't mean to diminish it, but it's available for use by the residents. It talks about our where our forests are, where our timber is, and to somebody who was looking in this area, that might be useful information. So, Adam, Chris, you have any thoughts on this?
I have my hand up.
Oh, sorry, missed it.
As somebody who grew up around forests and watched them all get destroyed within 10 years and houses went up everywhere on Long Island, this is shocking for me to hear, that we're taking a 180-degree turn from all the progress that we've been making and all the hard work a lot of people have put into this. So I'm not willing to consider this idea tonight. I do like what Erin said about removing the critical area. But I don't think this is the time to discuss flipping what we've been doing.
Fair enough. We certainly can take time to consider. We don't have to make any decisions tonight. We just haven't talked about it since, as a group, since the public hearing. So it was one of those things that was kind of hanging out there, and I just wanted to have a direction of where we were headed. Adam, any thoughts?
I just got almost joking though, is how can historic material be less accurate? Isn't it just more historic? Again, I'm kind of surprised that we're taking a 180 on this, but at the same time, there was, from the public hearing, there was public outcry not to do it. The folks that seemed in favor of the environmental plan, just, hey, that's a good idea, but the folks that were against it, they were adamantly and passionately against it. So, and that's why, quite honestly, I've been pushing for the public hearing, was to get the sentiment. Now, with that said, I've also heard that, that some people haven't been completely heard. I can't make up my mind. If you said, Adam, you have to make up your mind tonight, I don't know what I would say. I'd like some more time to think about it. And quite honestly, hopefully, like the short-term rental law, we continue to get public comment. People continue to send in their thoughts and ideas, because again, my biggest concern on this whole thing is I understand that people don't want to be in a map designation for anything, but it doesn't change it from being a critical environmental area just because you don't want to be on the map. And my bigger concern is that as people come into the area, yes, we as the board have the data and we know where it is. But if I bought a new house on Upper Cherrytown Road right now, I don't know if I'm buying a house in a critical environmental area or just in a field. So again, I'd like to, if anybody's watching this and they want to send more information, I'd love to hear your opinions. I'd love to collect more information on this. But that's what I got for you.
How about this? I mean, we're clearly not going to make a decision tonight. Why don't all of us give it a little more time, consider it. We can work on better education. I think a lot of what came out of it is there is a lot of misunderstanding of what a lot of things actually mean and don't mean. A lot of people wanted to know where their house was on a map, and there's some of this data that's not the way, like the critical environmental area. It clearly states on there, this is a representation of the area. In order to become a critical, just putting it in the comp plan doesn't make it a critical environmental area. We still have to go through the legal process to designate it a critical environmental area, hold a public hearing, refer it to different agencies for comment, and then adopt the actual map of the critical environmental area. So we're miles away from it ever being a critical environmental area, even if we were to adopt it as part of the comp plan. So I think we need to do a better job, and I agree with you, Aaron. And I think, Chris, I get what you're saying, and I as one of the people who worked on all three of those documents, I understand your sentiment. A lot of people put a lot of time and energy into it, and I'm not suggesting we walk away totally, but I think we should we have a lot of other urgent things right now. Whether we may adopt this as part of the comp plan or not at this very moment or in the next 2 months doesn't really change anything. So I think
I was just going to quickly say, I'll take my hand down because I just wanted to agree with what you said earlier, that a lot of the language is consultant language, not legal language. And so I'm willing to have a continuing conversation. I really love the first discussion item about the short-term rentals because we're making so much progress. And so yeah. I'm happy to continue talking.
Okay. Aaron, you had your hand up, and then B.
Yeah, I wanted to say a couple things because in a very annoying way, I generate lots of ideas. So I starred one of them because you said it too, Mike, just to get you guys thinking as we think about this better education. I had written that down and then you said it, Mike, so I started. I think another thing we could do is not have a public hearing. We could have a public information session. What I said at the top, though, I'm very committed to, which is that I heard that a lot of people did not see when I reread the comprehensive plan law, it struck me that in about 6 places it says the public, this is for the public should create your comprehensive plan. And so I heard from people that did not see themselves in these additions, whether it was because it was consultant or we hadn't done a good enough job educating people about what that was. I don't know, but that's what I heard. And that's why I too don't feel like I can make a decision on it now. But I also would say is that some of just because we're not including these things as an appendices doesn't mean that we can't use them as a guide. We can't, we've already done some of the stuff that the Natural Heritage Plan has suggested. Like the town has created laws that were suggested from that plan. So that doesn't, we're not rejecting the information. And I think that's all it got my brain thinking in a bigger way, which is that, wow, we really need to redo our comp plan and we can use some of this stuff for that. So that was just for me a bigger reaction. So, but I do think if we can engage the public on this more too, because I want people to feel like they see themselves and I want them to feel like they have a voice. So that's why one of my other suggestions is maybe we draft some statements or, something to contextualize it if we do want to move forward in the future. So that's it. I'll keep my mouth shut now.
B, go ahead, and then I've got something
What I
just to
wanted
add to
to say
Aaron's.
was something they changed a long time ago, even with the zoning board, is they said we could stop contacting contiguous landowners by doing postings. I think that was a very sad thing. I said, because when you come up with something, the mapping or whatever, contiguous landowners want to know. And that's another form of education, letting them know when we're bringing up something like this, or at least the ones that are directly affected by the area that we're proposing or have been proposed by the consultants. Better communication and education is always a good thing.
Yep. And
that's my soap.
just to sort of reiterate though, the consultant proposed an area and there really is no map yet. And that's,
I know.
And I shoulder the blame for that because the zoning review committee had recommended that we adopt the critical environmental area as a critical environmental area. And at that one meeting that we had, I initiated that process with a map that was not well prepared for what I was doing. And I created a lot of this problem because in my effort to try to move forward what the ZRC was recommending, I was not prepared totally. And because I wasn't prepared, you guys didn't understand it. And because you guys didn't understand it, the public didn't understand it. And a lot of the misinformation or the misunderstandings that are out there now about this whole process, I fully shoulder the blame for because of that one meeting. And sometimes you can't really go backwards to fix a problem like that. So I think what we do is what Aaron said is we have this information. A lot of it is data driven. So even if we've involved the public, data is data. You can't have really an opinion on data. You can have an opinion of whether it's accurate data or not accurate data, but you can't really have an opinion of whether the data, you can't change the information. A place that's a 15% slope, it's a mathematical formula. It's a 15% slope and you can't change it unless you do an excavation. So it's a silly example, but that's what a lot of the data that's in this document is it's very real number driven data.
You may not change the data, Mike, but you can still figure out whose land the data affects and therefore notify he, she, or they what's going on and put it out there and then hold a public meeting, public hearing.
But that's my point is by putting it in the comp plan, we were not affecting anybody's land. It was a concept plan that was being proposed. And the concept plan only would affect somebody's land if we took it the next step and created either the critical environmental area or whatever the recommendation was that we were creating. So that's where I said, I think the misunderstanding got out there. So anyway, I think we've sort of talked it through. I think we will hold the public hearing as it is at this point, unless the board wants to make a resolution. Mary Lou, can we make a resolution just to not continue it or to close it? Or can we just do what happened in 2017 with the short-term rental? Is it was a 4 or 3.5 year adjournment?
Yeah, you can close the public hearing. I don't remember what you said at the end of the
believe
public hearing. If
I
you
could
told
go-
them you would,
Yeah,
you know,
Well,
if,
I heard 2 other board members saying they wanted to leave it open
yeah.
tonight. So I think we should just not take an action right now.
We're just not gonna take any action tonight, and we'll leave it at where it is for the moment, and then we can decide if we want to reconvene or not.
right, you, and if you want to, you can always have one more and then close it.
Yeah,
You know, as Adam said, a lot of people wanted to speak and he's interested in getting more input, I believe. I'm not misquoting you, hopefully, Adam.
well, certainly
So
anybody.
maybe
can-
you do, and that also, even if you decide not to go any further with it after you close the public hearing, you get some more ideas and find out what people are concerned about for when you do move ahead.
But there's no law that we have to close the public hearing, right? If we just never reschedule.
No, but you know,
No, I understand. I
neater.
understand from
it's
a.
neater. You don't
from a
have to,
closure.
but
Yeah,
it's
no,
neater.
I understand. But I'm not hearing that we are to the point, and I think having another public hearing sends a different message than what I'm hearing from at least half of the board here tonight. So right now, having another public hearing, even if it's just for the purpose of closing it, it doesn't seem appropriate to me. So I guess we'll just continue and
You can continue it, you
No,
can close
we-
it, you
we-
can
we
do whatever you
we can
want.
invite people to continue to make written comments if they wish.
Yeah,
That's also a good idea, actually,
that's
to
what
say
I-
that you'll hold it open for written comments until
we
such
did-
and such a date.
At the last, well, we don't even have a date. At the last meeting, we said anybody can submit written comments.
Right,
and-
no, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. You can say, you can make a motion to only accept written comments from here on out and close it on, fill in date here.
Okay,
Or think
Um,
about it till the next meeting, decide what you want to do.
yep. So I'm gonna skip the building survey for tonight because being that we are at 8 o'clock already and there's a number of resolutions that came up important and there's a couple of very timely things that need to be talked about. So Chris, first, we'll move to the watershed park. If you wanted to give a little brief talk about it, so.
Thank you. I've been working on a letter to neighbors within 500 feet of parcel 76.1-3-17 that the town of Rochester owns. It's a 34-acre parcel. So we're working on a letter to all of the neighbors. I like your camera blocker, B. Good idea.
Who's that lady behind the jungle?
Yeah, it's my Easter plant for my kids and the leaf fell down.
I'm working. We've been working on a letter. We're going to finalize it in the morning. We hope to get that letter out tomorrow. And it talks about the property, the work that we've been doing last year, or the progress we've been doing, and the progress for this year. I'm going to share a bulleted list of both what we did last year and what I'm suggesting with the ECC that we do this year. I'll share that in just a moment. But the letter will go out tomorrow so that all of the neighbors have plenty of notice that the presentation is happening on April 15th. So I will share my screen. Mike, can you give me the ability?
Oh, yep. Let me do that.
Chris, just a quick interruption. Postage for the letters, should that go through ECC or the town board? How do they want to handle that? Because you could drop the letters off to us and we can process them.
Nice.
All depends on how you guys want to go about
I
the
think
mailing
it's
of
a
it.
Town board expense. It's
We
probably
can-
10 to 20 letters.
It's really a town board project. The ECC is collaborating on it with us, but it's a town
Yeah.
board project. Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
It would.
Great.
So if you want to drop those letters off to my office, we will get them out in the mail.
Okay. Thanks, Kate.
Have to do, Mary Lou, do we have to authorize that through a resolution? To send public notice to people? Or,
You're muted.
I think it's such a small amount. I don't know that it's official public notice because it's
Okay.
not required
Yeah,
notice.
It's not a public notice. It's an informational letter.
Yeah,
okay,
it's
got
it's
it.
an informational letter and I think it's within the budget of the town, so.
Yeah,
Of the town board.
yeah. I was just, the nature of the correspondence is what confused
Well,
me.
Chris is
And
about.
it's not a required,
Or what it's gonna say. So if we have input in it right now.
Okay, great. And yeah, so the letter I can go over. But 4 of the properties that abut this property are so large that Mike had a good suggestion to do 500 feet from the property. It's going to be a slightly bigger mailer, up to 20 people. Okay, so I will share the bullets first.
And the reason I suggested to Chris the 500, that's what we use for all our other notices. So it
Nice.
seems to be the appropriate number.
Okay, great. So this is Town of Rochester parcel number 76.1-3-17. It's 34.084 acres. Last year, the progress that we completed, we began background research on the plant and animal species that exist on the property. We walked and thoroughly assessed the site to establish an idea of a good layout for trails that can lead to significant or rare locations on the property. We began to assess our needs for tree planting, signage, sitting and observation areas.
Chris, you need another S in assess.
I was gonna say, yeah, you have to correct the spelling of that word.
Yes, that one we have to. Performed some minor cutting and pruning, moving material, flagging and staking while reviewing ideas with Councilman Chris Hewitt, a contracted permaculture professional, Andrew Faust, Town of Rochester ECC Chair Madeline Russo, Councilwoman Erin Anawan, and other town stakeholders. Publicly presented 2020 findings to the Town of Rochester Town Board and ECC. So this is, and we all approved that, we agreed to that, and we funded that with $2,500 last year.
Chris, can I ask you who the other stakeholders are?
Well, I didn't want to mention every single person that was there on the property, but one example is Mark Dietrich. He's a bird and wildlife expert, and he's working on inventory of bird species.
He's a member of the ECC.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and instead of, you can maybe say, and members of the Environmental Conservation Commission.
Okay. I brought a spiritual advisor there also, and I didn't want to name everyone that has been giving us advice. So I can.
The only reason I bring that up is because they're an actual commission of the town. So it wasn't just the chair, it was other ECC members. I mean, I don't think you need to list by name every
Everybody.
person, but
Okay,
at least
sounds good.
this covers the groups that were there.
Great. Okay, so the 2021 progress. Continue to investigate flora and fauna on the property and begin inventory and descriptions with ECC and ecology professionals. Communicate with town residents through presentations, a neighbor mailing, volunteer days, and information sessions. Continue conversation with Nexamp about the town's property and possible public uses. Learn from Ulster County towns that have town parks, example, town of Esopus, about how to officially create a park. Identify and remove invasive species on the town property, including multiflora rose, barberry, and Japanese knotweed. Work with landscaping professionals to continue to identify ways to improve the health of the property.
Chris, can you add in there abiding by New York State DEC regulations, because for the invasive species?
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
they have regulations on that. So just
Have we spoken with the DEC?
not yet, because we haven't gotten to that stage yet, but when we do, we will.
But, okay, if they're thinking about doing this, it would seem to me that the DEC should be notified.
Yep, you're right. That will happen in due course.
Well, I can tell you, I already spoke to them and I'm waiting a call back
Okay.
because I'm
Great.
concerned.
So we will work with landscaping professionals to continue to identify ways to improve the health of the property. For example, if we have Japanese knotweed on our property, that means everyone downstream can have Japanese knotweed. Spread wood chips on the trail system as possible. Create sand beds for picnic areas. Find sources, and this is mostly I write possible because none of this is fully approved or moving forward until we have our feedback and information sessions and the presentation on the 15th. Create sand beds for picnic areas. Find sources and pricing for ideal plants in the agroforestry forest garden plantings. There's a section of the map that talks about this area because there's ideal post-agricultural sections that are ripe for planting things like blueberries, raspberries, nuts, and other fruit. Analyze costs of possible insurance and other annual expenses in order to calculate a possible fee for park usage for non-county residents. And finally, improve the trail map and key that includes information about unique or interesting locations. So I can share, I worked on this today, just finalized it, and I can share this with everybody right now. Any questions?
National meeting, Chris, is to be held when on this?
It is April 15th, I believe, as part of the ECC Third Thursday series.
And is this, will the letters going out notify the landowners of this meeting? Is that
Yeah.
the purpose?
It talks about how it's a Zoom meeting too.
And we'll give the link to the meeting because they operate the same way for every meeting. Aaron, you had a question.
Yeah, so I think just the two comments I had was, one, I think what we talked about at our last meeting was before we make changes to the property, we have to decide that through board resolution. So I wanted to, you might be able to answer this later, but make sure that we know exactly what that is when that comes. And then my feedback for your plan, I just have one piece of feedback, which is what I personally would think for me would be a priority would be seeing just what are the legal steps we need to take in order to establish a park, so that just to see it, because I think that would be really helpful to make sure that our timeline of progress matches what that is. And I think that's my only piece of feedback, is sort of having an order of operations outlined, perhaps, if that makes sense. And then how do, if you're removing invasive species, is there a way to contextualize that outside of the park, or is it necessarily part of the process, so that we're I guess that's just what I was or is there also still in a research phase, you're still trying to figure out if a park is viable, that just questions like that, to see it in an order of operations type format.
So if I
That's my
can,
bullet about town of Esopus, so I'll find out what steps they took as soon as I can. Thanks, Aaron.
Mary Lou, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is town-owned land already. Unless we're selling it, I don't believe there's any legal process to turn it into a park, short of any funding to create the park. Obviously has to be approved by the town board or be already in our budget. So much like when we signed the initial contract, we approved that contract to have the phase one. So did I say
I'll
wrong there,
have
Mary
to
Lou?
look. I'll have to look because I'm not sure if there is an official step of outline, as Aaron said, to turn something into a park. But I know that when something is a park, it's difficult to make it no longer be a park. So I think that's something we want to look at as well.
That's only though, and I know what you're referring to, that's only if you use federal or state money toward the process because part of the
No, there's a provision that you have
Okay.
to get New York State legislative approval, like if you're going to sell a park.
Oh,
think-
okay. Yeah, because I know the past, and we've experienced this with the county planning department and planning board, is whenever there's something that was funded with state or federal money, grant money to make a park, it must remain a park forever because you use the money to make it a park. So you can't 20 years down the road go, oh, we want to sell
Right,
this.
but this is without,
This is
money.
without,
Bill
okay,
would need
okay.
legislative approval.
Well, my hope would be to move forward to keep it a park forever. and
Right,
so-
yeah, you never say, let's make a park for 10 years.
Exactly.
There's a purpose that it remain parkland forever. But so, if to take it off the park list, you have to go there, how do you get on the park list, right? So
Right.
I'll look to see if there's a.
So we had voted back when we did the original resolution back last year, Aaron and Adam, were you, yeah, you guys were on the board when we did this original resolution. So we authorized Chris to move forward with step one, phase one. We could certainly do a resolution right now we don't have to do a resolution for the letter, but we could do a resolution to allow him to send that letter out to the contiguous neighbors and to present this at the April 15th ECC third Thursday meeting. I don't think there's any harm in doing that. It would sort of add a little more. We've talked about this but remember, this is all still an investigation process. And Chris, Mary Lou said it pretty clearly, before you start any physical work on the property, we would need to have, a separate board approval, I think. But right now, all we're asking to do is information to the public, to the ECC. It's what we just talked about at the last section, getting information out there. So,
Mike, I have a question.
Yep.
And Mary Lou as well. Because it's town-owned land, and before we could put the solar panels there, we had to do a referendum. Do we have to do this to make a park? Can
As
we
I said,
just
I have to look at,
I'm putting that question out there.
yeah.
yeah,
Do we have to?
yeah, I will look at the process,
The referendum for the solar it was a
leasing, and when you,
permissive referendum because we were leasing the property.
I understand that, but
Yeah, we will retain ownership. We're
this
not
is, you're
leasing.
using it for your own purposes. When you have a lease, it's subject to permissive referendum if people want it. I don't know that a park is, but we'll find out.
however, whatever land we own belongs to the taxpayers, not to the town board. So we have to be careful, and I would like. to
And
know-
you're the, like the guardians of the
We are the
galaxy.
guardians of the land, and therefore that's why I'm asking the question.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because if you find out, as we did last year, if we make this park and things don't get any better in parks in the area for garbage, et cetera, Chris, I'm sorry to put this to you, but Vernoy was a mess last year. And
I spent a lot of time.
I
in the
don't know how to
Catskills.
educate people to make them to leave it as they find it. Leave no trace, educate them to not leave their garbage. I don't know what the answer is there.
Right,
Absolutely.
but on the counterpoint to that, right now, I can guarantee you that there's a number of people who utilize that property on a regular basis right now for other activities, hunting, whatever, and
You're hunting, trout fishing, I'm very.
agreed. But my point is, those same people can be leaving garbage there too. So let's not just make assumptions that because we make it a park, it's going to become a garbage dump.
Well, not maybe. I collected a whole bag of garbage while I was there last
There
week.
you go. So whether we make it a park or not, certainly if we make it a park, we have a little more activity there. We have a little more control of it. Right now, it's land that is there, the town owned. To be honest, all the people that are going on it right now technically are trespassing because yes, it's town owned land, but that doesn't mean it's free for anybody to go on at all times. I'm not saying that we're going to do anything about it, but my point is this is a use of a piece of property that the town owns that we really don't have a lot of other use for. So to me, this is a really good use.
Well, if they're taxpayers of the town, Mike, I'd be real hard pressed to tell them they couldn't go there.
Well, town hall is just an example. Town hall is a town-owned building by the taxpayers. Nobody can just walk in here whenever they feel like it. I know it's an example, but my point is, and I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying there's a misnomer that just because it's taxpayer land that it is open and accessible to anybody at any time. So anyway,
Adam's hand is up.
oh, thanks, Adam.
I just wanted to say that's be the second time you brought up, garbage on trails. Right after our last meeting, I went and walked both of the areas you talked about. I got a new dog. I got to walk him someplace, and I didn't find a speck of trash in either of the places because I wanted to know for myself. So I don't know if you've walked the Verneuil Kill or you've walked our rail trail, but I got to be honest. I walk a lot of places, including Minnewaska, and our spaces are immaculate. So again, if we have a garbage problem, I'm not seeing it with my own eyes.
Well, Adam, I'm talking about what went on up on the mountain last summer when we had all the extra visitors to the area at Verneuil Kill. They trashed the swimming hole, trashed it.
You're talking about Deep
Up.
Hole, and that's an unregulated site, which is part
Yeah.
of the problem.
Yeah, Verneuil Kill is pristine. It's really nice up there. It's a hard walk to get into. That's for sure.
I've walked it, not of the last 20 years, but I have been up there several dozen.
Well,
Gorgeous.
I guess what I'm trying to bring up is I think there's two things. There's like the park plan that I think that's like what Chris is starting to take steps to work towards. And I think I think we should be considering all the impacts and how we would mitigate them, the effect. But then there's also like the legal process. And I think it's our job to do both those things. So I think
will tell us what the legal process is, and then we'll have that answer. So,
and I think that'll help us know what we have to decide at different points. But I think I love the ideas that Councilman Hewitt has brought up so far, where this awareness of natural space, having it be a place that is not just untended, but that we have, it's being monitored and that people are being educated on how to interact in these spaces, I think could actually be something that could benefit in the community, as B is saying, more than in just this park, but perhaps when people are going to other spaces too. So,
well, I think
can read that letter if you'd like, Mike, and I appreciate B's suggestion to send this letter. I can read it now because I would love to be able to get it out tomorrow.
Yeah, go ahead.
Share screen.
You should have it still.
Okay, just wondering if I should share.
Up to you.
Regarding Town of Rochester parcel number 76.1-3-17. Dear neighbor, we are writing to inform you that the Town of Rochester has been spending time on one of the town properties that abuts or is near your property. Parcel number 76.1-3-17 is a 34-acre property that the town has owned since, and we'll get the date tomorrow, Mike. Last year, members of the Town of Rochester Town Board and Environmental Conservation Commission performed research on the property to analyze the flora and fauna in the area and identify unique and beautiful areas of the land. We would like to inform you that we are continuing to spend time on the property in order to understand the property that the parcel that our town residents own, and consider how we can keep the parcel healthy and appreciated for generations to come. Councilman Chris Hewitt will be presenting information on April 15th about the progress being made on the parcel during the ECC's Third Thursday lecture series. Here's the link. There will be an opportunity to ask questions after the presentation, and the town will continue to publicly present all plans and progress related to our work on this town property. Please feel free to reach out with any questions, thoughts, or ideas about this subject or any other town matter that you'd like to share. Councilman Hewitt, Supervisor Baden, and Chair Russo. I would like to CC Town Clerk Kate Gumberg.
The only thing, Chris, when you say reach out, if we can include either if you want to go to your email address, the only thing, anything that goes to your email address, you should share with Kate, or we can just have it sent directly to Kate. You could say your email address or Kate, but then anything that comes to you, you need to be certain you forward to Kate. So
Okay. Kate, is that okay if I put you here too? Or do you want me to just,
Absolutely.
can you give, is it Kay Gunberg?
hey,
Yeah.
Gunberg. Yep.
Any other feedback or edits, anybody?
Maybe just at the top, rather than just giving the parcel ID, we can give the address.
Okay, thank you.
It's I forgot something Route 209. I can't remember the number.
Oh, I just saw it the other day.
Yeah.
I've got it. Oh,
You do?
yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm unmuted. Sorry. 6140.
you.
And then I think the only thing, I don't know because I'm just, my brain works this way, but I think that parcel also is the same parcel that the,
It used to be Aaron, but they separated it out.
They were separated during the lease process.
oh, okay. So it is it is a
It's a
34 acre.
separate parcel.
Okay, got it. Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Oh, B, is there your hand raised for this?
Actually, Chris, I might have to confirm that. It might not be a separate parcel. Originally, it was going to be, and then the law changed for the solar, so it didn't have to be. So it may not be.
I have the
On
map
the
right here.
County Parcel Viewer, it's the same.
The map you have was the original that was drawn that ended up not being filed. I think it is the same parcel.
Oh, I see. I have it with 3 separate parcels.
Yeah, that didn't happen because the law changed. What you have was the original proposal to
Okay,
be 3 parcels, and the solar laws changed, so the solar didn't have to be on 2 separate parcels. So I believe it remains as 1.
all right. Should we fix
So
that?
maybe you should say, instead of referencing the parcel number, just you might say this is the area behind the town solar complex or something like that, or solar field, or
All right. I just wanted to be clear that the town owns this property.
yeah.
Right, yeah.
Because I was gonna ask that maybe you want to put in here an access and an egress or anything, I don't know, something along those lines, so people would-
That's the address, because that's the and there's a placard there at the entrance that has that number, the 6140 Route 209.
But I don't know if you're going to use the whole 34 acres. I mean, I just wondered if you wanted to, maybe that'll come as part of your presentation.
I see what you mean. Is this good for now, though?
Yeah, I think, Chris, you get the opinion of what we're talking about, and you and I can clarify the parcel thing tomorrow. So now that Chris has shared this, I'm going to go ahead and make a resolution that we support, I don't know, allow, what is the word? Support Councilman Hewitt sending this letter to the contiguous owners and presenting at the ECC April 15th meeting. We'll keep it simple.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, Kate, we'll do a roll call vote, please. And yeah, use the word support.
Just so long as we're just discussing the letter mailing at this time.
It's the letter and the presentation,
Yes,
the 2 together.
yes.
Nothing else beyond those 2 steps.
Councilwoman Anowen,
Aye.
Councilman Hagen DePew,
Aye.
Councilman Hewitt,
Aye.
Councilman Paddock,
Aye.
Supervisor Baden.
Aye. Okay, moving on. The Minnewaska State Park Preserve request. Mary Lou, do you mind sort of starting out with the parking ticket thing? I'm gonna give Chris, I'm sorry, Rich Miller a quick call, and I asked him to join us during this section because he and I and Jose and Adam was able to be there for part of the meeting today, met with the Minnewaska people and the sheriff and the state police and the county emergency management people. All total, there were about 20 some people at this meeting. So let me just give Rich a quick call. I'm gonna mute. So Mary Lou, maybe.
He muted himself.
He muted, but he kept talking.
Sorry. If you start, I'll get Rich. I'm muting so I can call Rich real quick.
Okay, I guess I'm starting. I sent all of you an email, I think last week, about the parking, and constables can issue uniform parking tickets. That's part of state law. I think you also may want to, by resolution, allow that, because in our forming of the constabulary, we said that they could do things as approved. And if you just want it to be for certain times and places, that's fine. But they can issue it. We don't need to do a local law for that. Okay, Mike, you can unmute yourself now. Take over.
Yep. Okay. So Rich, if you want to unmute yourself, please here, Rich.
Hello.
So we met today with all these people. There were a lot of really good ideas, suggestions, discussion. To fill in on a couple other things, there is a new county emergency management director. I'm hearing a different tone from this gentleman than the previous gentleman about the use of our constabulary. There were ideas kicked around about using UCAT, Ulster County Area Transportation, for shuttle buses to there. There are some issues that have to be worked out, in that when you're dropping people off with a bus to go hiking, if they get out on a trail that's longer than they think and they miss the last bus back, well, then what happens? You got the person stuck out in the woods, and they're kind of left stranded, and
Just have a long hike home.
yeah, either that or we put New Paltz Taxi on speed dial, and they'll be driving a lot of people between Minnewaska and the county fairgrounds. So, but it was a good discussion. All the agencies really want to do a better job. I don't suspect we're going to have the level of problem we had last year. The parking lot is now open completely. They can park 750 vehicles at a time. Last year, they were down to probably less than 200 at a time. So it's a sizable change. But one statistic they gave us was staggering. They had 200,000 more visitors there in 2020 than they had in 2019. I didn't get the number, what it was in 2019, but the fact that there were 200,000 more visitors, and that's essentially, we're talking about a 26-week period of time, more or less.
Yeah. Mike, it went from 500,000 to 700,000 in a year.
Okay, yeah. So that's a lot of people. Clarified with both the DOT and with the sheriff and the state police, we do have the authority and ability to tow from state roads as the town. I wanted to hear that clarification from them. They said, yes, we do. So there was a discussion about towing. Neither the state or the county seems to want to sort of take that role on, though. They really kind of were looking toward us to do it. If we are to do it, we need to really have a very established practice. But the general consensus is that without teeth, parking tickets don't really mean anything. And the general consensus was ticketing and towing is certainly much more effective. When somebody's car disappears from where it was parked and they have to go get it, it's a little more of a deterrent than a $50 ticket on a windshield that they can come back 5 or 6 hours later and say, okay, I'll pay it. So, Rich, let me sort of hand it off to you now.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's the first time I've been doing this, so if I sound a little off, I apologize. This is not the greatest microphone in the world, as Mike will tell you, being a professional. It was a very informative meeting. First off, I would like to congratulate all of the people involved last year. The love was everywhere from every agency, from Minnewaska through the state police, through the sheriff's department. They said we did a bang up job, and it was kind of a vital service based on the fact that this year is going to be worse for them personnel wise. They have many other tasks that they have to perform, and they were very grateful to the board and our agency for actually performing the service. 200,000 people is a whole lot of people. The idea of in traffic enforcement generally, especially when you're dealing with parking, is pretty simplistic. At the very beginning, you do as much of it as you can, including towing, for a good period of time, and then you do it at random times throughout the rest of the season. Essentially, it gets out to social media. That's how we had our problem at Depot, is it got out to social media, and then all of a sudden everybody started showing up in our small town. Well, if it gets out to social media that active enforcement is being taken, the chance of it being as bad as it has been, even with the larger parking lots being open, will be much more, much less likely. So that being said, the whole concept of parking tickets and the like, Mike will tell you, in fact, he brought it up at the meeting, 100% correct. When you only have two guys up there, whether we have 5 state police cars or none, if you get one person parking and they leave their car and they disappear into the forest and you can't find them, someone else parks, and then another person, then another person. And by the time you get back to that vehicle, there's 27 cars along the side of the road. And now we have 1 lane of travel on 4455. So it has to be a notification, ticketing, and an active towing enforcement. And for a long time, we've known we can write parking tickets. We, like the state police, have been limited until very recently to writing a ticket to a driver. We have to find the driver and hand it to them themselves. But now within the tracks system, which we already have, it will print out a local parking ticket, same as a state one, except it's permissible to put it on the windshield. So that, in concert with towing, maybe the first person to park there and disappear, will alleviate a good portion of that problem. And the state will do towing. We can do towing. And just to close up on this, when I first started, we had towing agreements with several of the local vendors. Mike, you may have those on file somewhere still. I don't know, because I wasn't privy to the agreements. But if we're not hiring a tow truck driver and buying a tow truck, we're not responsible for the vehicle after it leaves. So it gets towed to a secure lot that's owned by the tow vendor, and then the storage fees, the fines, that kind of stuff would go through the tow vendor, and whatever deal you make with that vendor is between the town and your vendor. The fines for the ticket that was written that prompted the towing, that of course would go through the court system, the same as anything else. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So we would have a contract with the tow vendor, and Kate, maybe you can help me on that, because I was not aware of any contracts. Maybe, I don't know if you have anything in the files, and I don't know if Karen will even know where to look for them. So
Mike, I have, we had a tow list that had 3
Okay.
companies on it.
Okay, well, I'll explore that tomorrow. That's actually the first I've heard that there was previously contracts. So does anybody have any questions for Rich? Aaron?
Yeah, I guess that's what it was for Rich and Mary Lou. Last year when we talked about this, we talked about with Depot and this issue, we were told the constables could not write the tickets and if the driver wasn't there. So what I heard you saying, Rich, is that because of a change now in the system that you use, you're able to? Is that?
That's partially correct, Aaron. It's a great question. The reason we couldn't write them last year is the tickets that we're supplied by the state, by DMV, they're called UTTs, Uniform Traffic Tickets. They must be issued to an individual, not to a vehicle. The plain parking tickets, I had tried to to get the board to print up our own from Williams Business. But now those tickets, which you can put under a windshield wiper, those can be printed by our in-car printers. So we don't have to have them printed. We now have the ability to print them on the fly. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Just not so last year, what we were told is we would have to like go through a special process in order to enable.
We would
that,
have
but
to
it's not-
adopt a resolution authorizing our constables to issue parking tickets, but, and that was what Mary Lou was researching, and that's
Okay.
what she was talking about earlier. So we questioned whether we could give the constables that authority, and Mary Lou has researched it and has come back and said, yes, we can.
So it's just a matter of,
It was a twofold
Going-
problem before.
yeah,
One was
because-
equipment and
yeah.
one was authorization.
okay, got it. Yeah, because I remember we were talking about meter maids and all that. So, but now I got it now. So that was the question.
Right. So we
And-
have both answers, and the equipment has now been solved in that we now have these in-car printers that are able to print out what, and I could show you an example of like what the sheriff's office would print out. The sheriff's office does it right now, except ours would say Town of Rochester instead of Ulster County Sheriff. And it would be a ticket, but it would go to a vehicle as opposed to the other tickets that we utilize for every other have to go to a physical person. So that's the difference. So now we have the technology, and we found out we have the ability to authorize this. So all we need to do to initiate the process is authorize our constables to issue the parking tickets. I would want to work out with Mary Lou the exact resolution. I'm not really prepared to do it tonight, but we could certainly do it at our workshop meeting in April to make that.
Yeah, and I have to look into something Mike brought up to me today that I had not thought about. I was so into okay, can we issue these parking tickets? But we have to come up with a fine, and I have to see how we do that.
Rich
Whether
says the state fine is what was the range?
Mike, for the 1200 series parking tickets, which are, by the way, we are already authorized to do that. That's vehicle and traffic law, but they range from $50 to $400 depending upon where you are illegally parked and how dangerous that location is.
And then the judge issues the fine according to their schedule of fines. If you're parked in a handicap zone, it's one fine. If you're parked.
Yeah, and those are the minimums, Mike, not the range.
Okay. Oh, that's the minimums.
Yes.
I misunderstood. I thought it was 50 to 400 was the range. Okay.
No, it's, you're right. A handicap is more, it's 150, and a simple parking ticket could be 50 to 100 is the range, but the minimums are 50 for some and can go up to the minimum being 400 for others.
So it's sounding like, Mary Lou, you might want to check. We may not have to put a fine in it because there may be a standard fine that's already
right. Well,
allowed under VTL.
right. I was thinking more of so that's Minnewaska. So you're going to do them as VTLs, what, in the 1200s?
Exactly, Mary Lou, until we have a town law that would cover that particular road, which we can then switch. But right now, we might as well just use VTL because we don't have to do anything else. Nothing
We can
special.
use VTL though on town roads, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Any road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the judge can set that fine within
Okay.
the range. So right now, I haven't been to Minnewaska in a long time because 200,000 extra people came last year, and I decided not to be one of them. But I'm trying to think back. So are there tow-away zone signs up there that the state has issued?
Every 75 feet now, there is a sign that says no parking, no stopping anytime.
Some say no stopping, some say no standing, but they alternate. And Dave Corrigan was at the meeting today.
Oh, good.
And they have, we thought they were in the process of being installed, and he said, no, they're installed. So
Okay, but they also say that it's a tow-away zone.
they do not say the tow-away zone. They just say no stopping or no standing.
they don't have to say, in fact, he said that, Dave said that, they don't have
Yeah,
to
Dave
say,
did say today that they don't need to say a tow-away zone, that if you're parked illegally, that they can be a tow-away zone. Now, clearly, we're not deciding on the towing tonight. We're just talking about the ticketing. The towing is another discussion because we would have to initiate vendors and everything else.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I don't know which one of you wants to be getting the phone calls in the middle of the night that says, I don't know where my car is, and nothing
Thank-
said it was a tow away. So
Mary Lou, thankfully, those calls would actually end up going to the state police. Their system takes the data and stores it, and the tow company
yeah,
gives them,
but the person doesn't know that.
well, they get informed. If they call and their car's missing, they call 911 or they call the local
Or they
agent.
call Mike Baden.
Well, that's
We
fine.
don't
Mike
know.
likes
We don't
to
know who
call.
they call.
but
Or-
in fairness,
or new
Mary Lou,
calls,
in
whatever.
fairness, you're thinking of a local situation. If somebody is up to Minnewaska for the day and their car is missing, they're probably going to call the police before they call me.
Yeah, maybe unless
Probably.
somebody says, yeah, the town of Rochester constables were ticketing.
Yeah, true.
Now,
Good
I would-
point.
I do think my sense is that people parking, a lot of the people, it was new visitors, it was 200,000. That they might not be from the area, is
Yeah.
all I'm saying. They might not know that they're in the town of Rochester. So, and also my understanding is that the no standing signs are more severe than no parking because it means you're not allowed to even stop.
Yeah. Well, right
Rich.
now, they are alternated.
Yeah.
If you drive along the DOT, and very purposely, one says no parking, the next one says no standing, the next one says no parking. Only if they got out of sync is it different than that. So we could clarify with them, I think, about that stuff.
Where's that hand raise thing?
Down
go to
at
the
the
bottom.
in the reactions.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah. Okay, Rich, go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. No stopping and no standing is the same parking violation according to VTL. It
Mhm.
just means that you haven't put your car in park and shut it off. If you're stopped on the side of the road, you are standing. You could have your foot on the brake, you're still standing.
Yep.
So the variation in the language is the variation in the language.
Okay, and B? You're muted, sorry.
What I was gonna say is, I started this process last year when I asked Mary Lou if we could ticket, and it took a full year to come full circle. I hope it doesn't take that long to find out about towing, so we can utilize some of this year.
No, we
Even
have
though there
answers
may
now,
not be
so.
200,000 people this year, but I know it was a mess going back and forth through there for people to go to work who had to work the weekends.
Agreed, and we had to work through the process, and we had a very productive meeting today, and it took 2 months to get that meeting put together of all those 20-some people, so I understand what you're saying, but it's not just in our hands, it's in a lot of other people's hands too, but we've already made a lot of progress, and we'll put together a resolution for the next meeting to move this forward. In the meantime, though, they asked us for patrols. I will tell you, last Saturday was a gorgeous day, and I drove over there and there was not an issue there. So I would suggest that we not do patrols yet until we get this up and running, and which would be by May, and then start doing patrols. I just don't know that they're necessary right now. If we find that that's different, we could start them, but how does the board feel about that?
Why would Mr. Humphries then ask for it now?
He asked for it based on last year, but he was, he has said multiple times, we'll take any help you can give us. So he's asking for his highest request, which is coverage every weekend and every holiday between April 3rd and the end of October. But I personally observed there was no issue last Saturday or Sunday. So my point is, until we have a way to fund, and I don't mean to say that the parking is going to fund this, but certainly any parking tickets issued will move toward funding the constabulary patrolling. My feeling is that at the moment, they may not be necessary. So I'm open to any other opinions, but rather than funding it now until we'll get at the next meeting, we'll get the resolution together. We just got this information at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So
yeah, Mike, asking for some help and, with the leaf peepers is one thing. Asking for, 2 to 4 days a week for 6 different. Not that I'm sure we want to help, and I'm sure Rich and his staff are obviously capable. But again, who's paying for this? And I know what you're saying. Come back to us tickets, but again, I mean that's a lot of staffing. A lot of work that the guys need to do. So either we need something formally with Minnewaska where it's not just a favor, and a hey guys, thanks, and then a pat on the back. Or they need to get their own traffic patrol force up there. If they want to use us, I mean, we need something. Again, my opinion, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but something more formal. If that's going to be our duty and responsibility going forward, rather than a favor.
Right, and this grew out of this. That started out the first year of. It was during, or maybe the first 2 years. It was during the fall leaf peeper season, which was traditionally when it was the worst. Last year, because of the perfect storm of COVID, everything else being shut down, parking lots being rebuilt at the same time, all three happened simultaneously. We had never experienced what we experienced last summer on a regular basis. So I say right now, rather than committing our people out there only to find that they're not needed, that we monitor it and we move when it becomes necessary. And when we have an ability to issue those tickets.
Mike, with the tickets they would issue, they would more than cover their cost. I know that.
I'm not saying not, but why? We already have issues trying to get the manpower. There were some days we didn't have coverage last year. Why start now if there's absolutely nobody parking up there?
What happened to Walt Miller's paperwork? He was another man that put in. Where's his paperwork?
What do you mean, where's his paper? We approved him.
Hasn't gone through the system of the state yet.
We approved him as a board member. Rich, do you want to? Go ahead, Rich. Yeah.
Actually, the paperwork, Mike, that was the section for civil service that we did when we were with you. It wasn't signed. So she kicked it back to me, and I was had a nice long conversation with the boss, and that got fixed yesterday.
Okay.
So we're good. We're good.
See, this is the first I've heard about it. So if there was
It wasn't your, it was
know
them.
So
It was the state. They hadn't gotten back to me. I
okay.
asked them why, and they didn't have an answer. So
Well,
fixed.
okay. But see, apparently B, you're the only person who knew there was a problem with his paperwork. So
We hadn't heard anything about him being hired. That was the
we
thing.
did a resolution to hire him.
We did a resolution to hire him, but we never heard that he was hired. That's why I asked.
I'm confused what that means. We did a resolution to hire him. We hired him.
We did, but for whatever reason, he wasn't participating.
We have not been needing constables. And once we hired him, the paperwork had to go to Albany. Any one of our constables, that's the process. The paperwork goes to Albany. So I don't understand what you mean of he wasn't hired.
I think she just means she didn't see him on the schedule.
Oh. Okay.
So what I wanted to say, Mike, I like your idea of holding off because I think if there's not an issue, then we're like you said, we're going to have to deal with the scheduling issue. And then I also think, what I would just say ahead of like drafting the resolution is that last year it was really clear from the issues that our residents really wanted us to do something about the problem because they couldn't travel. And So I think in light of that, I support the town finding, resolving the issue. But I would say also in light of the fact that we still haven't completed our constabulary review process, and we haven't as a board come together to say like exactly what we want, that I would say that if for the traffic tickets, and I would say that it would be really important that we do it very specifically to this situation for now, and then reassess it for other situations in the future, since we can do that as the board.
Well, my only comment on that is if we're going to issue it in the no parking zone, we should do it for all no parking zones in the town. There are very few. So we can only issue it if it's publicly posted as a no parking zone. So we clearly know, and this is why we made the depot area a large no parking area. We were working toward this solution. So if we're going to post it with no parking and then not issue tickets for it, it's kind of pointless that we posted it. So, Rich, and then we've got 4 other important things to get done tonight. So, and we're getting late here. So, Rich, go ahead.
Sorry, that was from before.
Okay. So, we'll work toward this resolution for next meeting. We can decide then what it means. Rich, thank you.
Oh, no problem. Mike, can I ask you a question? You had just mentioned the other areas in town. Can I also remind you guys that we have signs up that say no littering with a fine on it, and yet we have no littering law?
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
So next, moving forward with the playground equipment. We talked last meeting about moving forward with the option 2. Adam got us the quote, which I circulated to everybody today, along with a draft resolution. So I'll read the resolution, Adam, since I know you're in your car, but I'd really like you to make this. So the town board authorizes the town supervisor to sign contract with Play and Park Structures of New Jersey and New York, 920 Bay Shore Avenue, West Islip, New York. There's another extra 1 in there. I will correct that. Sorry, I think it's 11795, but I'll double check that. For playground equipment specified with quote number 876140186 in the amount of $52,055.29. This pricing is per New York State contract PC 67835. Do I have that motion?
I would like to make the motion to buy the playground equipment.
Okay,
I'll second it.
thank you. For discussion, we budgeted 50,000. The playground equipment is actually 49 something. The additional amount of, let me find it here real quick. 2495 is for the 80 cubic yards of the EWF, which is the playground material to put around it at a 1 foot depth. And Adam and the gentleman calculated that. That also is being bought under the New York State contract. And we will fund that amount out of the maintenance line for parks. So the playground equipment will be funded out of the playground equipment line, and the mulch out of the maintenance line. So any other questions? If not,
I have a question, not so much a question. This all comes in a huge truck, obviously.
Yep.
When is payment due on this? At delivery?
Let me find out on the contract, which I have here. It actually does not say. So you're giving me the authority to sign the contract. I will clarify with the vendor if they need half up front or
That was my question.
yeah. But the money is budgeted for. It is appropriated. It is there in our budget. So
Well, that's my question. And because when we get it, supposing something's damaged in shipment and you've already paid him the full price.
well, just like anything else, if something's damaged in shipment, we would make a claim against it, and like any other product that's mailed to you that You know, you buy something at Amazon,
Well,
you,
where I'm going with this is if we withheld a little bit and we had a problem, we'd at least have something.
I'll work that out with the vendor, you know, what the payment, I don't believe that they're gonna ask us for the entire amount up front. They're probably, Adam had said it's a 3 to 4 week, build process for them, and then, what'd you say, a 5 to 7 day delivery?
Yeah, so they're talking, 4 to 6 weeks. And you got to forgive me though, because I thought the terms were net 30. I thought because it was state bid municipality
What
that we'd
might be.
actually pay,
Yeah,
that we would pay 30 within 30 days of receipt. This thing is a monster. It's a big deal. The coordination with Jeff and his guys is really paramount. The nice thing about it though is, the good and the bad be is it's tailgate delivery. Tailgate delivery means they're going to drive the truck here and park the truck until we unload it. So we're literally going to inspect every piece as it comes off the vehicle.
yep.
Yeah, I know.
And it's about 4,000 pounds, but we have the ability to unload it from the truck, and we will get it off the truck, and we'll work with Jeff to store it in the highway garage temporarily, and then we will schedule install. But the payment terms, I'm sure will be, if it is net 30, then we won't be paying until we get it, so. But either way, we have a signed contract with them, so that will address any concerns. So, Kate, roll call vote on that?
Councilwoman Allen,
Aye.
Councilman Hagen Depew,
Aye.
Councilman Hewitt,
Aye.
Councilman Paddock.
Aye.
Supervisor Baden.
Aye. Next on the pavilion rental, and I went ahead and put a resolution together based on our conversation last meeting. The town board adopts the form titled Town Park Pavilion Use Agreement, and I circulated that with all of you today. For reservations of the Town Park Pavilion, and adopts a $50 user fee and $50 refundable security deposit, effective with any reservation of the Town Park Pavilion as of April 17, 2021. The town clerk's office shall administer the reservation system and calendar of reservation. I put that date on because it's a Saturday. It's, essentially the next Saturday. That's not this coming weekend. We could put whatever date we wanted to on it. I picked the date thinking that seemed like as good a day as any to start the reservation system. Any questions or discussion more on it?
That gives Kate enough time to get a calendar and everything ready, right?
Okay. I figured we might start getting reservations for May and June now. So by getting out ahead of it in the mid-April, that gets us started. So, and then Kate will deal with the $50 refundable deposit in whatever format makes the easiest sense for her. And she will administer that. There's no reason we need to micromanage that or anything. So, any other questions? Okay.
Mike, do we have to put the signage in the resolution that we talked about?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. We can have those signs made up and installed down there. That's just a budget item.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a fee that we're charging and a new agreement. So essentially that's what we're approving. We're approving the fee and that rental, that agreement form that I made up based on our building form that we talked about back in February. And I made the changes that Mary Lou suggested and then tweaked it to be the fees that we proposed. So. Okay, Kate, roll call vote?
Councilwoman Allen,
Aye.
Councilwoman Hagen Depew,
I think she said aye, but we didn't hear.
oh,
You're muted, sorry, B.
Aye. Yes.
Councilman Hewitt,
Aye.
Councilman Paddock,
Aye.
Supervisor Baden.
Aye. I'm gonna, in the interest of time, I'm gonna skip the American Tower lease and we'll talk about that at the next meeting. The lease doesn't expire for a very long time. I have a resolution we need to do regarding the Algerville Firehouse. I'm going to read this, and unfortunately, I apologize. I'm going to read the whole resolution so it's on the record. So whereas the town of Rochester, New York applied for and obtained funding for the project titled Algerville Fire Station Emergency Shelter through a community development block grant recovery obtained through the New York State Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, New York Rising Community Reconstruction Program. Whereas the New York Governor's Office of Storm Recovery reviewed plans and specifications and other required documentation. And by email communication submitted by Alfondre Architecture and by email communication on November 25, 2020, approved said documents. And whereas the project was formally bid in accordance with municipal requirements and publicly advertised on December 10, 2020, whereas 4 general construction bids were received on January 22, 2021, and publicly opened and read aloud with the lowest responsible bid at $1,235,000 and the highest bid $1,578,347. Meyer Contracting Corporation, 12 Charles Street, Pleasant Valley, New York, 12569 was the lowest bidder. And whereas on February 11, 2021, with resolution 100 of 2021, the town of Rochester selected and awarded a contract agreement to Meyer Contracting Corporation, 12 Charles Street, Pleasant Valley, New York, 12569 in the amount of $1,235,000, contingent on the approval of the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. And whereas on February 15th, the town of Rochester conveyed offer of contract agreement to Meyer Contracting Corporation, 12 Charles Street, Pleasant Valley, New York, 12569. And whereas on April 2nd, 2021, Meyer Contracting Corporation, citing the requirements of the State of New York General Municipal Law, Section 105, stating that contracts not awarded within the time provided by the law may be withdrawn, submitted by letter its notice of withdrawal of bid for the above project. Whereas general municipal law provides that a bidder may withdraw its bid if a contract is not awarded within 45 days of the receipt of the bid. And in this instance, the bid contract was awarded well within the 45-day time period. Whereas Meyer Contracting Corporation has refused to enter into the contract in accordance without deviating from the material terms of the bid and the bid specifications. Whereas the town board feels that it is in the best interest of the town to release Meyer Contracting Corporation from this bid and allow the withdrawal of the bid. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Rochester, New York accepts the request of Meyer Contracting Corporation to withdraw its bid and releases Meyer Contracting Corporation from its responsibility relative to the Algerville Fire Station and Emergency Shelter Project.
Mike, can I ask that, I'm sorry, on the next to last whereas that starts with general municipal law, can you add in section 105? I forgot to put that in there. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So that's, oh, whereas general municipal law, section 105. So
Yes.
it's the third from the bottom, whereas.
Oh, sorry, I didn't, I also didn't bold the last one, so I didn't.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah. third from the bottom.
Kate, I'll make that change and send you a copy. So I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Here's the situation. Meyer was the lowest bid. We offered them the contract. They have been stalling signing the contract for various reasons, some of which are known, some of which are not known. They had asked for approval authority over the other prime contractors' contracts. That is not allowed under the federal law for CDBG projects. And Bill Blankenship from our grant manager and myself and the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery informed them of that multiple times. They still refused to sign the contract. And then they sent this letter to us trying to opt out by saying we didn't offer them a contract, which is why Mary Lou worded the resolution the way she did, showing that, yes, we did indeed offer them a contract. It was at their choice not to sign it, but that it appears that they are not going to sign it and we should release them from the bid. So that's the short answer of why we're doing this.
And you don't have to release them from the bid,
Right.
but do you want to work with them?
It
in this
appears
instance.
they will never
You
sign
could
it.
hold them to it,
Yeah. So,
What
but
does-
right, we'd have to go to court to get them to,
What does this mean in terms of the next bid, or what happens?
so where we stand now, there were 3 remaining bidders. There were 4 bidders originally for this project. Bill Blankenship and myself and Alfondre Architecture met, and we have offered to negotiate with the other 3 bidders. The reason I'm sorry, we had sent them back in originally, the total bids were above the project amount. So we had sent them a request to negotiate. They all agreed, and then we did not need to negotiate because Bill was able to find additional funding to meet the budget, and so we did not have to act on that. Because they agreed to negotiate, we have identified 3 budget line items that have increased substantially in cost of construction materials. It was rebar, it was lumber, and the third was not steel, but metal formed material, which would be like wall frames and things like that. I believe it was the third. So we have entered into asking the 3 remaining bidders to submit a new pricing for those 3 items to us by Monday morning, 9 a.m. Actually, they're being submitted to Kate. Kate will record them, submit them to us. We will then recalculate their amended bid, and we will then get a recommendation from the contractor to award the contract. So likely the number 2 contractor, if they choose to do this process, will probably get the bid, the option of the contract being awarded to them. But so we are essentially going back to the other 3 contractors to make sure they still want their bids considered. And but step 1 is we have to release Meyer from their contract. And I may be calling you next week for a special meeting just for the purpose of awarding that bid, being that we probably will know by Tuesday of next week whether where we stand on that. So rather than waiting till our workshop meeting, because the project is getting further and further behind while we've been waiting for Meyer to sign this contract. The other 2 vendors have signed their contracts probably almost immediately. They were signed by early March and have been completed with Gosser. So, Kate, roll call vote unless there's any other questions.
Councilwoman Anowen,
Aye.
Councilwoman Hagen Depew,
Aye.
Councilman Hewitt,
Aye.
Councilman Paddock,
Aye.
Supervisor Baden.
Aye. An additional resolution that came up at the last minute today, Gary Palmer of Accord Speedway reached out to me this afternoon. He has the possibility in September of renting out to a group that would use the facility for a monster truck show. Mary Lou and I talked, this would be classified as a racing date. It is currently proposed as a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There would be 4 shows: a Friday night at 7, a Saturday at 2, a Saturday at 7, a Sunday at 2. In order for him to do this, we would need to give him an exception to the racetrack law. And the code is very clear. We must hold a public hearing before we can do that. So he is requesting that we hold a public hearing to grant him a waiver from two points of the racetrack law. 1 point would be the Sunday racing, which is not allowed under the law. And the second would be racing 3 days consecutive, which is not allowed under the law. We cannot grant this unless we hold the public hearing. He spoke to me this afternoon. What happened was, this is a touring monster truck group that is going through various areas of the country. They're going to be in the Northeast in September. A track that they were supposed to go to canceled. Gary got the opportunity to schedule it. He can't schedule it until he knows he can do it. So he asked us to move ahead with the public hearing. If he's not able to get the contract with the gentleman, it won't matter anyway, and it won't happen. But it can't happen if we don't do the public hearing. So that being said, I'm going to ask us to schedule a special meeting, public hearing on April 22nd, which is 2 weeks from tonight at 6:30 p.m., which we can say to be held by Zoom because we're good through May 6th right now. And to ask the town or on waivers for the racetrack law, and I'll insert the section code section number with Kate with that, and to direct the town clerk to post notice of the public hearing. Are there any questions?
Mike, you're good with it? You're good with a monster truck public hearing on Earth Day?
Good point.
Just checking as I see the calendar.
Well, I made it that night because Thursdays tend to be good for all of us, and it's the next available Thursday. That we couldn't do it next week anyway because of notice. I didn't want to put him off until the 29th because if he doesn't act on it quickly, he may lose the opportunity. So I'm okay with it.
I'm good.
Any other questions? If not, he already has the 25th and 26th as racing dates that are scheduled on his, the 24th and 25th on his calendar. So he would be adding the 26th, and he does have additional spaces in his 40-day calendar. So, roll call vote.
Councilwoman Anowen,
Aye.
Councilwoman Hagen Depew,
Aye.
Councilman Hewitt,
Aye.
Councilman Paddock,
Hi.
Supervisor Baden.
Aye.
Okay, now that you've done that, I'm sorry, I was like trying to get your attention and wasn't working. You said May 6th, where?
No, May 6th is the governor. I checked the executive order for it's in place until May 6th.
I have it as in place till April 20th.
Oh, I looked on his website and it said through May 6th.
He may have just switched it. Committee on Open Government usually changes it right away.
Yeah, I looked last night on the governor's page and it said the executive order is effective through May 6th. So.
All right, I will double check it.
Yeah, because I looked when we were on the county planning board meeting last night because the question came up about our county planning board.
Okay.
I'll send you the link, but it definitely says.
No, you don't have to send me the link. I can look it up.
Okay.
It's just surprising that he did it early and that the Committee on Open Government didn't correct their page.
There were sections of it that were through May 20th, but the original executive order, the 202.1, was extended through May 6th. There were certain provisions that were April 20th.
Okay, well, they have it up as April 20th, so I'll double check that because
Yeah.
you might
Well,
have
that's why I went to his page and not
have
theirs.
it either way.
Yeah, I figured his is accurate. It's his executive order. So. Do you want us to word it as to be held at the Harold Lipton Community Center just to be safe, or by video conference?
Yeah, I would, just in case.
Okay.
Just in case.
So I'll amend the motion to say to be held April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. at the Harold Lipton Community Center, 15 Tobacco Road, Accord, New York, or via video conference in what's the language in I don't remember.
In accordance
In
with.
accordance, thank you, with Governor's Executive Order 202.1 and successors. So Aaron, or who made the second?
The second, I'm okay with that, but do we
Okay.
need to re-vote?
Yeah, we should.
Councilwoman Anowen,
Aye.
Councilman Hagen Depew,
Aye.
Councilman Hewitt,
Aye.
Councilman Paddock.
Aye.
Supervisor Baden.
Aye. And then the last thing, I circulated a letter from the code enforcement officer today. It's a lot to take in. I think at this late hour, it's probably not a good time to start talking about it, but please read it. Please consider, he's asking for some additional positions there. But in furtherance of that, I do want to do one step tonight that will start a possible process. You'll remember last meeting, I believe it was, Kate brought up the possibility of the clerk at the code enforcement office becoming a deputy town clerk. I looked into it further and spoke with Mike Richardson. It is possible. However, we only have a 0.25 position right now available for a deputy town clerk, for a third deputy town clerk, which is what this person would be, which would defeat the purpose because the current code enforcement clerk is at 0.5 hours, or 0.5, not 0.5 hours, but 0.5 per week, 50%. So I'm going to ask for a resolution to authorize the supervisor to request increasing the third deputy clerk from a 0.25 to a 0.75 assignment in terms of percentage of weekly hours. And do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. All it is at this point is a letter of request to the county. Even if we don't use it, it's just a change in paperwork. There's really no point in us having a 0.25 clerk. They can only work like 7 hours a week. It's not really very effective. So even if we don't end up using it, at least I've now started the process. So Kate, roll call vote on that?
Councilwoman Anowen,
Aye.
Councilwoman Hagen DePew,
Aye.
Councilman Hewitt,
Aye.
Councilman Paddock,
Aye.
Supervisor Baden.
Aye. Okay, that's all I have, and thank you. It was a really lot of stuff tonight. Good meeting. I'm glad we did it. We ticked off quite a few of our list of things to get accomplished, and I appreciate that. So unless anyone else has another topic to bring up, I'd ask for that famous motion.
I just wanted to, hold on. But the last topic you brought up, Mike, can we talk about that at our workshop meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I would really like to do that.
Yeah, I didn't think it's fair to you guys to try to talk about it now. You got
Totally.
I got the letter this morning.
Yeah. I
got it to you this afternoon. It is I think it's a bigger discussion than just one thing. So
yeah,
I'm not ignoring it, but I think it's too late and too complicated to start now.
I agree 100%. I was just asking if we could put it on the agenda for the workshop.
Absolutely. And I'll even ask Jerry to come if you'd like to.
I think that'd be great if he would.
Yep. So,
Great.
okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank
Second.
you all. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Have a safe trip home, Adam.
Thanks. 11 o'clock, I'll be home on the dot.
Adam, I gotta ask, real quick, where are you sitting?
I'm at it must be some municipal space where they dump sand for the winter. You just